Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Vikings Latest. I'm your host, Cole Smith, and today we're going to go over the latest power rankings, which are not fans of the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to talk about the Vikings' new approach to running the football this season, and then I also watched one of Caleb Banks' game tapes. I'll kind of tell you what I saw, what I could see the Vikings really liking, and then even addressing some of the weaknesses that made some people believe that the move was a reach in the moment. But first, we're going to start out with the big news over the weekend. The Vikings are for sale, maybe? That's what Charlie Waters of the Pioneer Press was trying to get everybody to think was going on. He released a story, it's like either Friday or Saturday, that the Wolves could potentially be selling. He cited that the Vikings last year in the 2025 offseason had a $350 million payroll, the highest in the NFL, and that this year the Vikings spent $226 million, second lowest in the NFL. Talked about how the Vikings released Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave and then drafted their replacement with Caleb Banks, who is much cheaper than them, and that the Vikings are just doing this to cut costs, really, and kind of prepare for a move. And then he even said, Charlie Waters said that the Wolves could make $8 to $9 billion with the sale, which probably is true. So I don't know if he's just been talking to the poll ads too much. If you don't know, the poll ads are with the Twins or Twins ownership. Twins fans are not very big fans at all. But Waters kind of ran with this. They started to gain some traction. Some people like started saying yes. Hopefully they sell the team. The Vikings have only won 3 playoff games in 21 seasons under the Wolves. So that kind of fueled some speculation. Like I put a poll out on Twitter, and I follow a lot of Vikings fans, so I got some feedback on it. It was still 66% of fans said not to sell, but there was like a pretty vocal minority who was like, yeah, they need to sell. Vikings need to be more competitive. I don't really know how the Wilfs really affect the 3 playoff wins. Like, I mean, like hiring better head coaches, maybe not hiring Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and getting a better GM, something like that. I can maybe see that, but like some of the heartbreaking losses over the years, I don't know what the Wolves could have done. Like Blair Walsh shanking a 27-yard field goal, Brett Favre, throwing an interception in the NFC Championship game. Like even if the Vikings win the Super Bowl, fall in the '09 season, like that changes the perception of the entire fan base. Everybody's happier, and like duh. But it just changes everything. And not everybody's not quite so doom and gloom about everything. The Blair Walsh miss, that was Mike Zimmer's second year. If he makes that field goal, they most likely win that game because there was still a little bit of time left. They most likely win that game. They would have played the Cardinals a week later, and they would have had a really good chance to beat the Cardinals. So maybe you're in the NFC Championship in year 2 under Zimmer. Maybe that changes everything. But instead, Blair Walsh misses a field goal. Mike Zimmer ends up hating kickers, and it just kind of was a precursor to the rest of the Mike Zimmer era. So I don't know. Anyway, that's my way of looking at it. Like, are the Wolves really responsible for that? Like, the Vikings did have the Metrodome when the Wolves were around, and the Wolves did get us U.S. Bank Stadium. Also got whole new practice facility. Apparently, Winter Park was even worse as a practice facility than the Metrodome was as a stadium. So long-winded way of me saying I don't really understand quite why people were so vehemently like in favor of this, but Charlie Waters said that there was a report that this was going to happen. So now, fast forward to everybody kind of picking this up. Ben Gessling of the Star Tribune, Alec Lewis of the Athletic, they chimed in. They said that the Wilfs are not selling the team. They didn't say that the Wilfs aren't interested. Like they just said it's not happening. Like not happening. Vikings.com's Lindsey Young, she's like one of the nicest Vikings media members out there. She even like kind of got vehemently like she's like, no, this is not a thing. Like I cannot believe Charlie Waters would even say this. Charlie Waters kind of his reporting's kind of hit and miss. Mark Rosen, Minnesota broadcasting legend, he weighed in. He called it BS. So crazy sort of thing. A lot of talk. Kind of had some people thinking. that potentially a move could be had. Some people really like the idea of a move, but it sounds like it's not actually happening. Charlie Waters just wanted some clicks. I guess it worked because even Pro Football Talk got wind of it. Mike Flory, of course, he's a Vikings fan. Um, but as of right now, it sounds like the Vikings aren't selling. Wolves aren't selling. Shocker. They're trying to cut these players that didn't work out very well last year, and their aggressiveness did not pay off. So, like usual, you pay a lot one year. If it doesn't pay off, in playoff postseason success, kind of rein everything in, kind of start to reset, reload for the future. So, Vikings are not going anywhere right now. Wolves still going to be the owners for the foreseeable future. So, on to the next thing. We got some NFL.com power rankings, and they are not fans of the Vikings at all. The Vikings are ranked 28th in the post draft power rankings. And Will Raggets of SI, he covers the Vikings, and he said he doesn't understand it. I don't understand it. The Vikings, of course, ended the season on a 5 game win streak, which I think we can kind of talk about the varying degrees of how important that was. But Vikings did still finish 9-8 despite having horrific quarterback play. Offense was like a no show almost the entire season. They get Kyler Murray, even if he's just like an average quarterback. We're not even expecting like Sam Darnold from 2024. We're expecting just average quarterback play that should help the Vikings like really improve a lot more this year. Like even if the Vikings just repeat at 8-9 or 9-8, that'd be disappointing. But that's not fifth worst team in the NFL. So it was just kind of curious ranking. I thought. There's just been a lot of people that like I looked at some other sites over the weekend when I was writing for Vikings Wire through the USA Today. You should click on that if you're able to. Vikings Wire USA Today, and they were ranking offenses in the NFL. The Vikings were 25th in that, and there was a lot of like, yeah, Kyler could be the guy, and if he doesn't work out, it's gonna be a repeat of last year. But there's some high upside. Even then, 25th ranked offense this year. They weren't big fans either. I think that a lot of the national media people, they're harping so much on the JJ McCarthy thing and thinking that Kyler might not be able to elevate the team, which maybe to be fair, that might be a good point, but they're also not accounting for Christian Darrisaw missing 7 games last year. They're not accounting for the starting offensive line not playing together for what 2.5 months last year, and Blake Randall playing center for the first time in his life. Hoping that there's a lot more stability on the offensive line. Knock on wood. We say that every year, but stuff like that can help the offense as a whole on top of Kyler. So yeah, there weren't a lot of other free agent splashes, and we still might get Jawan Jennings, but you lose Jalen Naylor, and then like what else do you add? So that's why a lot of people are like, well, the Vikings weren't good on offense last year. Yeah, Kyler's gonna be better than JJ McCarthy, but is that really a high bar to clear? Is that really gonna make the team any better? Even all that said, Vikings still had the third ranked defense in the league. So hoping that they're able to keep up with the defense, offense able to pull its weight some. Obviously, it'd be ideal if the offense is just awesome like the defense. But right now, 28th in the power rankings. This is good bulletin board material. Seems like whenever the Vikings are like really overlooked, they usually make the playoffs, or it seems like they make the playoffs. And then when there's expectations, they fall on their face. So this could be the perfect fuel for the offseason. You also don't have the team trying to have the pressure of repeating a 14-3 season like they did last year, coming off the 2024 season. You're just like, okay, reset. That's 2 years ago. A lot of the rosters turned over. Let's put that behind us and move forward. So, with that, we're going to move on to just a way that the Vikings can improve. It's embracing a new way to win. I keep kind of bringing this up with some of the assistant coaches the Vikings have hired. That, like I said, that 5 game win streak to end the year, it didn't really have a tangible impact on the regular season last year, and honestly, it hurt the Vikings draft position. But the Vikings did run the ball more to end the year, kind of relied on the defense in a ground game to get them out of that 4-8 hole that they were in. So Kevin O'Connell keeps talking about how the Vikings want to use that moving forward, and that could be a lot of talk. But some of the moves that they're making make me believe that O'Connell is really embracing this potential philosophical shift uh, to his past happy offense. Hire Frank Smith, who's been the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins the past 4 seasons. Frank Smith, he's been offensive line coach for a couple decades across the NFL and college. He was also Ben Roethlisberger's center back at Miami of Ohio for 3 years, which is really impressive to be a 3-year starter in college. So he's got that experience. Keith Carter. He was assistant offensive line coach last year for the Vikings. He was assistant offensive line coach for the Falcons in 2015 and 2016. The 2016 Falcons were the infamous 28-3 team that lost in the Super Bowl to the Falcons. He was also offensive line coach for the Titans from 2018 to 2022, back when Derrick Henry was on fire. For those 5 seasons, the Titans ranked in the top 6 in rushing. So hoping that that means that they're going to be embracing the run more. They got Damon Claiborne, who has been called like Diet Coke. Jameer Gibbs, Devon Achane, like those are the two names that they said Diet Coke. Devon Achane, obviously, he ran the past 3 seasons under Frank Smith with the Dolphins, averaged 5.7 yards per carry. If we can get anything close to that for Damon Claiborne, the Vikings have knocked it out of the park with the 6th-round pick, 198th pick in the NFL draft this year. So it makes me believe that the Vikings might be, hopefully, actually trying to find different ways to win. Last year, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, that aggressive spending spree that we were talking about earlier for free agency, that was to load up to give the team, quote, different ways to win a fight. Or I don't know if that was the exact quote, but it was Kwesi mentioned different ways to win a fight, winning different types of games, and the Vikings like through the roster and through transactional moves, they did that. But like philosophically, did they really do that? It seemed like they didn't really embrace that until the end of the season, especially on offense. So hopefully, uh, Kevin O'Connell is more open to changing things up earlier in the year before things go wrong, having assistant coaches who have backgrounds with strong running games and offensive line play can help elevate the offensive line as a whole, and then on the ground, hopefully that impacts O'Connell to lean on the run game more. If the Vikings can do that, that should be able to take pressure off of Kyler Murray. God forbid he gets hurt and Carson Wentz and or JJ McCarthy plays. It can't hurt the team. Hopefully that makes it so that last year's 5-game win streak to end the season, even though it hurt draft stock, could be a good thing in the end. So, final thing for today, we're going to go over some Caleb Banks tape. Obviously, I can't pull it up here, but I grinded his game against Florida State to end the season. He missed most of the season with his foot injury. We knew this, but this was week 14. So, this was after he came back. He didn't have to come back. So, keep that in mind. But he did come back, had it was like a 57 PFF grade that he had. But PFF logged him for 30 snaps, 22 pass rushes, and 8 run snaps. And 2 pressures. That's what PFF got him at, and that makes sense because when I was watching it, I was doing a lot of fast forwarding. There were times where I'd have to skip 5 or 6 plays because he just wasn't in the game. You could see why he is going to be, or why he was targeted by Brian Flores. He lined up all over the field. PFF had him lined up in the B gap 15 times. They had him lined up over the tackle 12 times. They had him lined up outside the tackle 3 times. That was crazy. They'd have him they'd send him on twists and stuff. The dude can move, and that's a 6'6", 330-pound guy moving off of a foot injury that he had been dealing with since the summer. So that was encouraging, even though not all the snaps were like high quality snaps. It was nice to see him move, and he wasn't just lining up and just going forward. He was twisting all over the field. It was really cool to see that. So you do see some of those concerns though that made people think that it would potentially be a reach because they weren't all explosive plays. Like I said, he was coming off a foot injury. Probably shouldn't have been playing like for his own good with the draft and everything. So there'd be some plays where he just kind of got caught up in the offensive line. That happens to almost everybody, and so, sometimes that's just to like absorb some play offensive line attention and free up space for other guys. But there were some plays where he just like blew through the line. Stat sheet didn't really account for it a ton, but he did really blow up some plays. There's one reverse where if he was like paying attention like a split second sooner, he would have had like a 7 yard loss. Again, maybe the foot is making him, second guess where he's seeing, or he's just thinking too much. You know how it is when you have a regular ailment, you're walking, you're limping or something at work. Your mind just isn't totally into the day. You're just missing like really easy things. Not that a reverse is an easy thing to see, but it was encouraging. It was encouraging. There's two more games I still need to watch, so I'll cover those over the next few days as well. I also got some Jake Golday tape, so should be able to knock out actually, those to end each of the next four segments over the next 4 days. So that was really fun. It was really fun to see kind of why the Vikings got Caleb Banks. You could even see why he may have fallen or why some people thought he would fall further. But the talent is there, the athleticism is there, the size is there. Like, I mean, he was wearing like white sleeves, so he kind of stood out. But like, he is like noticeably much larger than everybody else on the field. To see him moving around the way he did, it does make you really start to think, man, if he can just stay healthy and he can polish up his skill set, Brian Flores and that defense have a weapon on the interior. Hopefully, we see it sooner rather than later, but it does make me very encouraged for the future. Hopefully, the next two games that I watch reinforce that fact. So that's all I got for today, guys. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in over the past several weeks that we've been doing this. We're up to 60 subscribers. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, do that. This thing is growing really fast. It's super fun, especially with this time of year where it's a lot of speculation and hope runs eternal before the Vikings inevitably likely let us down once the real games begin. So, like, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Cole Smith. As always, Skull Vikings.